Shabbat shalom, everyone. I hope you are doing well. I'm going to make this brief because I know there's some other learning going on. I just want to talk to you quickly about the Parsha. So it's a cool Parsha. It's Vayetze. Where did we leave off last week? Last week, we were with Jacob, as he swindled his older brother Esav out of the birthright. He tricked his father Yitzchak, who's going blind, by putting on fur and pretending to be Esav, and got the birthright over Esav. Esav was so angry and he was like, I'm going to go kill that guy. And so Yaakov flees from Beersheba, where he was, to Haran. Haran is where his uncle Laban lives. So it's his uncle because Rivka, Jacob's mother, is the sister of Laban. So it was always known from the time that Yaakov and Esau were born who their betrothed were going to be, because Rebecca had this brother Laban. So Laban. Rebecca had Yaakov and Esau, and Laban had Leah and Rachel. And so it was always assumed, there's these two sets of twins. The older will marry the older, and the younger will marry the younger. And so we learned that Leah had heard of Esav's ways. Leah, the older daughter of Laban, heard about Esav's ways and was so upset, did not want to marry him at all, that she cried so much of her life that her eyes became soft. And when we're introduced to Leah and Rachel, we are told that Leah's eyes are soft, that her eyes are smushy, and that Rachel is beautiful of form and of face, something like that. So Leah has swishy eyes and Rachel is beautiful. Doesn't seem so fair. It doesn't seem like such a fair way to present to people. And the truth is that we're not really talking about their values as people. It's not like, oh, it's good to be a Rachel and it's bad to be a Leah. No. That's what I want to talk about, because I think for so long we just have this idea of like Leah as being like this whiny, annoying older sister who just wants to, who's just causing problems. And that's so not the case. When we meet Leah and Rachel, in the same way when we meet any of these other biblical characters, we're being presented two personality archetypes. The personality archetypes of Leah and Rachel are as follows. So Rachel is the kind of straight shooter, just like, not a problem kid, not necessarily so righteous or special, but just a good kid, does what she's supposed to do. And that's exactly what Yaakov is like. Yaakov is, he studies, he's a good guy, for the most part, besides when he swindles his older brother out of his birthright. But he's just like a standard run-of-the-mill guy. And there are people like that in the world. There 50% of us are like that. And then we have Leah. Leah is what we would call interesting. She's quirky. She's different. And so she's kind of aligned with Esav in that way. Esav liked to hunt. He liked to be outside. He was a different kind of guy. He wasn't so the normal path. He kind of forged his own path. He was different. And Leah is the same way. So we have these, when we're presented with Leah and Rachel, it's not that one is good and one is bad. No. These are two different personalities. And if you don't know what you are, think about it a little bit. So Rachel, straight shooter, Leah marking her own path. And I heard this cool story that kind of talked about these two things. So there's once this guy who was raised in a family that was super Jewish, and as he got older, he kind of fell away from he was tired of the Jewish stuff, and he decided he was going to get really into leftist politics, and he started driving a tractor on some kibbutz and was very into that, and we really went off the path, as we would say. After many years, he decided, it's time. I think I want to go back to a yeshiva. I think I want to learn about Judaism. So he decides to learn. He goes and starts learning in this yeshiva, and it's really great. He starts to learn so much. He gets so advanced. He studies really hard. So much so that he becomes a great student and decides that he wants to go visit the Rebbe, Menachem Mendel Schneerson, in New York. So he goes to visit the Rebbe, and he writes to the Rebbe this really long letter about all the things that he's been learning. He tells him, a little bit about his his background, where he was driving a tractor, being off the derech. But the majority of that he wanted to talk to the Rebbe about Torah, about all things Jewish. And what the Rebbe says to him is, "So you drive a tractor?" And the guy is devastated. That's the life he left behind. That's not what he wants to talk to the Rebbe about. And he thinks nothing of it. He stays and he learns. He stays in New York and he learns, and he develops a really nice relationship with the Rebbe. And many years go by, and then one day the Rebbe says, "It's time for you to go back to the tractor." And the guy's he's so confused. What do you mean? Why don't you want me to stay and learn here? And he doesn't really understand. But he goes back. He goes back to the tractor. He works on a farm. He's just a regular Joe with bringing a lunch to work. And what he realizes is that the Rebbe sent him out because he had a very unique situation. He was learned, but he was also a regular Joe. He went out into the world and was able to bring so many more people to Yiddishkeit, to Jewish thought, because he was just a normal guy who had normal experiences. He was able to affect so many more people than if he was sitting in a yeshiva or if he was a rabbi. He is the forger of his own path, and he had a very, very unique situation that he was able to reach people who wouldn't normally be able to be reached. And that is what we have someone like Leah, someone who sets her path and does her own thing. And again, we also have Rachel's who do what they're supposed to do. It takes all kinds. We need both of those kinds of people. I just really like that idea about Leah. And you know what? Think about who you are. Think about who you are in that story. There's always place for every single kind of person. Like I said, it takes all kinds in this world. But I think Leah gets a bad rep, and that's what I wanted to share. Shabbat shalom. I hope everyone has a great weekend.